May 31st, 2013, the last evening of the month.
That is it right there.
The air over central Oklahoma is dead still. The sky has turned a deep, unnatural green.
It's the real deal, brother. It's about a half mile wide.
And somewhere out on the open plains, something is already beginning to form.
Yep. That's the monster.
Yeah, the tornado's right behind us on the right.
Oh, it's coming right at us here, guys. Just wait 2 more seconds. Stay right there.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Debris! Debris!
It's coming up! That whole thing's coming up!
Oh my god. Oh my god.
What could we do?
Keep going, Andrew. Keep
Come
going.
on.
Keep going. Why is this guy stopping?
Watch that truck!
11 days earlier, a mile-wide tornado had torn straight through the town of Moore, killing more than 20 people and wiping whole neighborhoods off the map.
Is the worst tornado in the United States.
Oklahoma is still bleeding from it. So when the sirens begin again that Friday afternoon, nobody waits to see what comes next.
Yeah, we got a big traffic jam ahead of us. This is ridiculous.
Across the city, 1 million people pour onto the highways, all of them running in the same direction, away from the storm.
Everybody jump, go. Just keep going if you can. Keep going if you can. Everybody jump down. Everybody jump down.
And out on the open plains to the west, one man is driving the other way, straight toward it. His name is Tim Samaras. For 15 years, he has gotten closer to these storms than any scientist on Earth. Not for the thrill of it, but to steal their secrets in the final seconds before they form. Nobody in the country understands a tornado better than he does. Nobody is more careful. And that is exactly what makes what happens next so hard to believe. Before this evening is over, Tim Samaras will be dead. So will his son. So will the man riding beside him, the first storm chasers ever killed by the thing they spent their lives chasing. And the warning meant to carry 1 million people to safety will instead come terrifyingly close to trapping 500 of them in the open, stranded and motionless, directly in the path of the largest tornado the planet has ever recorded. To understand what happened at Reno, you have to go back to the 11 days that came before it. On the 20th of May, the town of Moore took a direct hit from an EF5, the strongest rating a tornado can be given. It leveled entire neighborhoods, block after block, and it was the 4th time since 1999 that a violent tornado had ripped through the same town. By the end of that month, the people of central Oklahoma weren't curious about storms anymore. They were afraid of the sky itself. So on the 31st, the mood was nothing like an ordinary warning day. The dread was already there, waiting. The local stations ran non-stop storm coverage for hours before anything touched the ground, and the message coming through the screens was blunt and urgent. If a tornado comes, don't just take shelter, run. Get out of its path.
You don't want to be in your car when this thing is coming in. You want to be someplace way more substantial than your car. Abandon your car. If you are in your car, abandon it and go someplace more substantial.
It sounded like the safest advice in the world. It was about to get people killed. The tornado touched down a little after 6 in the evening in farmland near El Reno, roughly 30 miles west of Oklahoma City. At first it looked almost ordinary. Then it began to grow, and it didn't stop growing.
Okay, guys, I think that's a little close.
It's down right by the trees.
It's on the ground.
Most tornadoes are a few hundred yards wide. This one widened until it measured 2.5 miles across.
Holy fuck! Oh my god!
Wider than any tornado ever measured before or since.
It's titanic in size. The wind speeds continue to be extreme. We see things on Doppler radar shows the velocity like we've never really seen anything like this strong. I'm sure.
A mobile radar truck, parked at a safe distance, clocked winds inside it of more than 290 miles an hour. That puts it among the fastest winds ever recorded, anywhere on Earth.
And everybody duck down. Everybody duck down.
But the width and the speed weren't even the most dangerous part. The most dangerous part was that the storm would not behave.
This is nothing you mess with. It is a major, major tornadic circulation. It has already produced several tornadoes, multiple vortex, and it has all the classic indications that it most likely will be longer. And I tell you, the conditions are more favorable the more it goes to the east.
A normal tornado moves in a fairly steady line, and an experienced chaser can read it and stay out of its way. El Reno did the opposite. It jumped sideways. It changed direction without warning. Hidden inside the main funnel were smaller, even faster spin-ups, subvortices, scientists call them, whipping around the center like blades on a fan, each one carrying winds strong enough to throw a truck. And it was wrapped in heavy rain, which meant that from up close, you often couldn't see the monster at all. You could only see the rain. The tornado was somewhere inside it, and you had to guess where. For the most experienced storm watchers in America, that combination was something new. The rules they had trusted for decades simply did not apply to this one. 3 of the people watching it that evening were not tourists and not amateurs. They were the closest thing tornado science had to a national hero and his team, and they were about to be caught. Tim Samaras was 55 years old, an engineer from Colorado who had taught himself the science of storms. In 1999, he built something nobody else had, a low, heavy metal cone that could sit on a road and survive a direct hit from a tornado while it recorded what was happening inside. He called the probes turtles. The idea was almost impossibly simple and almost impossibly hard. To leave an instrument directly in the path of a tornado, then get away before it arrived. In 2003, in South Dakota, one of his turtles did something extraordinary. As a tornado passed straight over it, the probe recorded the air pressure dropping by 100 millibars in about 5 seconds. That was the deepest, fastest pressure drop ever measured inside a tornado. It is still one of the most valuable single readings in the history of the field. Here is the part that matters most. Samaras wasn't doing this for footage or for fame. He was trying to understand the exact moment a tornado is born, because the better scientists understand that moment, the earlier the warning can come. At the time, the average warning gave people about 13 minutes. Every piece of data he risked his life to collect was aimed at buying strangers a few more of those minutes. People he would never meet, in towns he would never visit. On May 31st, he was out near El Reno with 2 others. One was Carl Young, 45, a meteorologist who had worked beside him for years. The other was his own son, Paul, 24, a photographer who had grown up around these storms. They were tracking the storm from the roads south of it, the way they had done 1,000 times. And then the tornado did the thing nobody expected. It turned hard toward the northeast, and it accelerated. From a slow crawl to nearly 55 miles an hour in a matter of minutes. For a tornado, that is brutally fast. In the rain, the team couldn't see how close it had already come. By the time they were clear of the downpour, it had caught them. A sub-vortex, one of those smaller, faster spins hidden inside the main funnel, struck their car. Tim Samaras was found still inside the vehicle, still in his seat. Carl Young and Paul Samaras were thrown from the car and found nearly half a mile apart in different directions. They had spent their lives studying the one force on Earth that gave them almost no chance once it reached them, and it reached them in seconds. They were the first storm chasers ever killed by a tornado. After decades of people racing toward these storms with cameras and instruments, the science had never lost one of its own to the thing it studied. El Reno ended that. But the 3 men in that car were not the only people the storm was hunting that evening. While they were dying on a country road, a slower disaster was building on the highways, and it could have been 100 times worse. Back toward Oklahoma City, hundreds of thousands of people were doing exactly what they'd been told to do. They were leaving. A local meteorologist had gone on air and urged people in the metro to get in their cars and drive south, away from the storm.
Let me tell you something. In South Oklahoma City, if things don't change, a tornado is going to form in southwest Oklahoma City. I'm talking about Crossroads, I'm talking about downtown, I'm talking about State Fair Park, I'm talking about Whitewater Bay, also southwest Integris, the airport, all in through there. This is going to happen very fast, and if it doesn't change, a tornado is going to drop out of that, I would say, very, very quickly. This is South Oklahoma City. You folks need to be, if you're going to go south right now, if you don't feel safe, go south. Get out of its way.
The fear from more was still fresh, and people listened. The result was that the interstates, the 35, the 40, the 44, filled up completely.
It's like a concert just let out. It's people fleeing.
Drivers described it as chaos. Cars going the wrong way down the wrong lanes, families running on foot between bumpers, everyone trying to escape on roads that had turned into parking lots. And the tornado was drifting toward them. A senior meteorologist later said it plainly. If that 2.5-mile wide tornado had tracked directly over one of those jammed highways, the death toll could easily have passed 500. 500 people trapped in stationary cars, in the open, in the path of the widest tornado ever recorded. The advice meant to save lives had very nearly created the worst tornado disaster in American history. In the end, the storm weakened and lifted before it reached the heart of the gridlock. 8 people were killed that night, and every single one of them died in a vehicle. Not in a collapsed house, not under rubble, but in a car, on a road, trying to get away. One of them was a young mother named Maria Pohl Martin, who was 26. She was in the car with her 17-day-old son. When the tornado came, she unbuckled her seatbelt to hold him, to comfort him while he cried. Neither of them survived. The smallest, most human act a parent can make became the thing that exposed them. There's a strange footnote to El Reno, and it tells you how much this storm shook the people who study them. At first, the National Weather Service rated it an EF3 based on the damage on the ground. Then they upgraded it to an EF5, the top of the scale, after looking at those radar wind measurements over 290 miles an hour. And then, months later, they set it back to EF3 again. The reason was technical. The official scale rates tornadoes by the damage they leave behind, not by radar. And because this monster spent most of its life over open farmland, it didn't destroy enough buildings to prove its strength on paper. So the widest tornado ever recorded, with some of the fastest winds ever measured on the planet, is listed in the official record as a mid-level EF3. Scientists are still arguing about it, but the rating misses the real lesson. El Reno was the storm that humbled the experts. The most experienced chasers in the country read it wrong and paid for it. The best safety advice the city had nearly killed hundreds. And the single most careful tornado scientist alive, a man who built his whole life around respecting these storms, didn't make it home. Tim Samaras spent 15 years trying to steal a few extra minutes of warning for people he would never meet. The data his team gathered is still used today, and the warnings you get now are better, partly because of the risks he took. The widest tornado ever recorded took his life, his son's life, and his partner's life in a matter of seconds. And then it nearly took 500 more from the highways behind them before it lifted back into the sky and was gone. The storms haven't changed since that evening in 2013. We have. We watch them a little more carefully now, and we trust our own confidence a little less. Because El Reno proved something that the people who chase these things already half knew, and the rest of us are still learning. There is a point where knowledge runs out, and the sky does whatever it wants.
Before you leave, I just want to say thank you. This channel recently reached 30,000 subscribers, and seeing people care about these stories means more than you know. Every video takes hours of research, writing, editing, and animation to make sure these moments are remembered properly. If you enjoyed this documentary, a like, comment, or share helps us keep creating more stories like this. Thank you for being here.